last resolution is to enter into and execute the letter of intent and proposed development agreement to partner with Coastal Hydropower Corporation, requesting an option to develop proposed hydro generating facilities at Lock and Dams 24 and 25, currently under control of the City of Quincy, was tabled for 1 month on a motion of Alderman Brink.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Alderman.
I move for adoption of the resolution.
Can I ask Chuck a question?
Well, we need a second.
First.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Okay. Chuck.
Chuck, if we turn this down now, we have no idea what their offers is or right what Coastal wants to do or anything.
Correct.
We're done.
We're done.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Alderman Ryan.
Yeah, Chuck, let me explain my perception of this. We've got a permit, and Coastal is asking us to
If you can talk into your mic.
give them time to put together a proposal that they might suggest an interest in renting or leasing our permit.
That's not.
And that's my perception of this thing. And we're in the permitting business. We do it all the time. And if we're in the permitting business, I don't see why we wouldn't allow Coastal to give us some ideas as to how they permit this. And if we're not going to be prepared to handle permitting, we should get out of it completely. Don't permit liquor license. Don't permit restaurants. Get rid of all that permitting. You got a comment? You do. You like you're sitting there.
Well, I think I'm not reading it the same
So
way you are.
please, if you got something, share it with me. If I'm reading this thing all
Well,
wrong here.
Coastal is asking us to go forward with a first a letter of intent to enter into an agreement and then negotiate a redevelopment agreement, which would have to be reviewed by FERC in order for us to seek a permit. We've got preliminary permits, but we're going to seek a license. So first, a feasibility study has to be done as part of that permit process to get to the license, which is what we did on 21. We're nowhere near that process on 24 and 25, where we have the preliminary permit. So Coastal would have to do all that work, and before they do that, they would have to, they're asking to negotiate with the city the ability to partner with the city, because they can't do this without municipal preference. The city has to maintain essentially the control of 24 and 25. That's a requirement under municipal preference of the permits.
Of the
correct.
permit.
That's correct.
Just a permit.
So that's where they're at right now, and come the end of the year, the next 6-month reporting requirements are coming up, and someone's going to have to report to FERC the status of the permits for 24 and 25. And as of right now, no work's been done on them. So the time is of the essence, and what Coastal is asking the council is authorization to enter into a letter of intent and to begin the negotiation process for an agreement, an arrangement, because there can't be an agreement until FERC blesses it.
In the letter of intent, there's no requirement for the city to spend a penny, is there?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Which I'm opposed to spending money.
Alderman Havermill.
I have actually a couple questions for Chuck, maybe some other questions for the administration, and then a comment, okay? Chuck, you were, as we said before, and I think I've asked you this question before, and again, if it's unfair, tell me. You were project manager on the original hydro project. In your mind, is there significant difference of where we started with 20 and 21 to where we're starting with Coastal at this project? In other words, with what was proposed or the moving target that we dealt with, not knowing what we wanted to do with ownership, things like that, that created some of the problems, in my opinion, with 24 and 25. Are some of those questions not answered really already with what Coastal's talking about doing.
I think the coastal approach is different on 24 and 25 than what we did on 21,
Okay.
if I'm getting at your question.
That's my, yes.
The
In what way?
In 21, we went through a process of first and foremost forming a C Corp and a blocker corporation, which would make us eligible for the IRS grant funding.
So,
That's not in the picture at all now. And instead, what Coastal is saying is that there's this declaratory order that they can seek from FERC, which would expedite, in their mind, the agreement process between the city and Coastal to get a blessing from FERC that the arrangement is acceptable to FERC and we don't violate municipal preference.
okay, so on the, okay. So the next question then begs is that, is there a significant enough difference in your mind to make that this project should be looked at on its own merits and not consider, forget the public stigma attached to the word hydro for a minute. Is there enough difference that this would warrant a look by itself?
Alderman, I don't
If you're-
think it's my job to
Okay,
give you
that's-
that
no,
recommendation.
And that's why I gave you that's why I said that. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I've got for you, Chuck.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the permits we issue to, say, bars like liquor, for the liquor licenses and such, do we own any of these bars or have stock in them?
No, sir.
We don't?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do we own any other business in Quincy that we issue permits to?
I can't think of one off the top of my, maybe the clerk may be better able to share some of this. I don't think so, Alderman.
Okay, thank you,
Alderman.
Chuck.
Any additional questions for Chuck?
Your Honor, I do, before we
Alderwoman
do
Lund.
pass on. And I know we keep reiterating this, but if there are, at this step, if this does correct,
That's the policy of the city, yes.
that would be, so at this point, even if we look at what they're proposing to us, we would not have any, there would not be any risk for the
I think
taxpayer.
the council's going to have to authorize a dime of expenditure on hydro, in my mind,
Down the road or right now?
from this point forward. If you decide to enter in this letter of intent, I think you have to be expected that there's going to be some cost. Where, I don't know. But I think there's going to be some cost down the road. I don't think it's going to be free of cost. I just think at what point we're going to have to deal with that. But I don't know what that cost is going to be until we get into the negotiation.
And it's important to know that Coastal has not said that the city is going to not pay a dime once they get to the construction phase. That what they're saying is that they will take on the expenses of dealing with FERC and any of the feasibility studies, that they will handle that. However, if this council approves the negotiations and this council then seeks outside legal counsel that specializes in dealing with FERC, then we would probably be on the hook for that payment. Or if down the line there was unattended consequences of this, let's say if you look at other hydropower projects, a number of cities have had problems with state government, with sporting and fishermen people, lobbying against it. If we had to somehow hire our own representation or lobby, I mean, we've seen it with Lockett Dam 21. Again, this council would make that decision, and Coastal is not saying that they would pay for that.
I think the bottom line that I'm asking here is, at this present time, unless you come back to council, we are not spending any money, correct? I mean, if this would be approved tonight, there's no money tied in with that. And that's what most of us aldermen are saying, that we will look at their proposal to us, not saying we're going to approve their proposal or reject their proposal, but at this time, there's no money affixed to that. I guess we could have somebody negotiate our own legal, or we could have a community, some community leaders look into negotiating the contract free of cost. Are you willing to
Yes, of course.
look
That's
into
it.
something like that?
Yeah,
So
I've said that all along.
we wouldn't have to pay a dime if this did move forward.
The issue that you have is, one, I said it from the get-go that if we negotiate, there would be members of the council, members of the community on the negotiating team. It would be up to this council if they would like that reviewed by somebody who has experience with dealing with FERC and with dealing with hydropower issues and long-term projects. That would be up to this council, and that would be your decision. If you were happy with the negotiating team and not running through that through an expert who's been through that before, then that would be your decision. Alderwoman Heineke.
said, oh, I'm sorry. The only thing I have to say is, somewhere down the road, we're going to have to spend money to go further. I'm not willing to waste our time when we got other pressing stuff here in City of Quincy to deal with, for it to come back to us over and over and over and over again, when we know down the road we're going to have to spend money. Thank you.
There
Chairman.
could be something, I mean, we have not, sorry, Your Honor. may I-
Yes, go ahead.
I was speaking earlier, but there could be, though, that could be something that could be negotiated in. I mean, legal, we could negotiate in that we are not going to spend a dime and that they are fully responsible for all of the cost. Is that correct?
You could, but you could negotiate that, but they have said they're unwilling to make that statement, that all they're willing to do is pay toward the stage of the feasibility studies, that they cannot guarantee what the financial marketplace will bear, and they cannot guarantee the city of Quincy that we won't have some responsibility when it comes to financing.
And unfortunately, they won't do anything until you do enter into the letter of intent.
Alderman Easterhouse.
Chuck, I want to focus in on the importance of the partnership that Coastal is requesting, and we use the term municipal preference. So I think I understand why it's important to FERC, but would you please lay it out, or not FERC, but to Coastal, would you please lay it out in front of us here? What?
Well, the municipal preference gives the city the first right on the permits.
Okay, and to get,
That's what made the difference.
all right, let's go back. To get permits, if there's multiple requests, how do they choose?
If there's municipality, we have the first right on a permit. So if a municipality applies, we get municipal preference, we get in front of the line. Whereas if there's private industry, private sector applying for those permits, then it's a competitive process based on the timing of submission of their permits, but the municipal preference polls rank over all other requirements.
Okay, well, you called it a competitive process. However, if everybody's in line at the same time, they draw a name out of the hat, if I understand correctly.
If there is we were told that it comes down to a coin toss if it comes down to two parties who are evenly considered by FERC.
Now, I think from our experience, we could say that a 3-year preliminary permit is not enough time to assemble all the information that is required for a license application.
That was the issue with 21. I'm hearing through the declaratory order through FERC that they can possibly expedite the process with that order. Again, I'm not an expert in hydro, so I can just tell you what I recall from conversations with Coastal.
But it would be safe to say then that if anybody is serious about this and they look at investing in the necessary information package to apply for a license, and 3 years comes up and they have to renew, they don't have any standing other than municipal preference. A private entity has no standing to say, I've invested all this money to this point, I should have some proprietary rights to a renewal, but that isn't the case, correct?
I believe you're correct, Alderman.
So an entity that has invested and had reached that point, it's just the luck of the draw again, whether they'll be able to continue with a permit to get them to the license application stage. And would that be, I'm assuming that's what Coastal's looking at when they're looking at the partnership with us. That'd be a safe assumption?
Again, I don't want to say that that's a correct assumption, Alderman. I think you've got the principle right from what I hear, but I don't know the FERC process inside and out, so I don't want to start commenting on how FERC makes a decision.
Well, I couldn't either. Sometimes it's a mystery how it operates, but I see this as mitigating risk. The partnership mitigates risk for Coastal. Right now, it's not going to cost us anything to partner. Thanks.
Alderman Brink.
Your Honor, I have a question for the Corporation Counsel. Is this something that the Corporation Counsel or the staff feel comfortable handling, or would we be required to hire outside counsel to negotiate letter of intent and go moving forward?
Certainly the letter of intent, we've looked at it a number of times, and we're very, good to go on the letter of intent. We've looked at it a number of times. The issue is going to be is if the, not having ever practiced before FERC, and I can safely say not too many attorneys, if any, have around here practiced before FERC, that would be the issue. You know, it's an area of specialization. If we kind of went down the path the last time without having some of the basic knowledge we probably should have had or could have had, and may have gotten ourselves into a little bit of a problem with that. So my recommendation would be that you do get expert counsel. If you choose not to get expert counsel because of the nature of the utility industry and because of the nature of FERC and regulatory agencies, then we'll certainly look at it and we'll do our best and we'll do what we have to do. But my recommendation would be I think you need expert counsel.
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman Havermill.
I'm going to change my order. I'm going to make my statement first, and then I'm going to ask the administration a question. I think the dilemma that a lot of us are facing, and I know I am, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I guess, is that we are faced, whether we like it or not, as Alderman Brink has said, we are at a tipping point. We either increase revenues in some unorthodox way, if you want to call it that, we increase taxes, or we drastically cut services. I'm not sure that anybody up here would argue that. And if I'm misspeaking, please, speak up. The dilemma is because this has 5 letters attached to it, makes it very touchy or hard for us to deal with, and that's hydro, those letters. I guess it boils down to, does this letter of intent make us bear any risk or share any risk? I don't see that it does. I asked Corporation Counsel that last week. He said it does not bear or share risk at this point. The troubling part of the discussion tonight to me is that the question immediately about hiring some outside counsel, and again, it's not a statement on our Corporation Counsel or our legal staff. It's certainly, I understand that stance about wanting to get somebody to protect our interests, but we don't know if Coastal will pay for that or not. We don't know what we don't know. That's where we're at. And that's the problem. If somebody can come up with another way to have $5 million worth of revenue, I'd be willing to listen. It really boils down to this one question for the administration. This could be the mayor's question. He can answer this, or whoever wants to. Do you feel this is the best use of time for your administration to pursue this project?
No.
Good enough. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Gale.
No.
Mand.
No.
Dusterhouse.
Aye.
Bauer.
Aye.
Holbrook.
No.
Havermill.
No.
Farha.
No.
Sassen.
No.
Rhine.
Aye.
Lepper.
No.
Mussolino.
No.
Brink.
No.
Heineke.
No.
Oslag.
Aye.
4 ayes, 10 noes.
The resolution is defeated.